The following story is based on real events. I've never told this story publicly before because, even now, I'm not completely sure what I experienced. But I know one thing for certain. Someone was inside my house that night, and they answered me. This happened 3 years ago, when I was living alone in a small rented house on the edge of town. It was the kind of place that looked normal during the day, but at night felt strangely isolated. No streetlights near the driveway, trees pressed close to the walls, and silence so thick it almost rang in your ears. I worked late shifts back then, usually getting home around midnight. That night was no different, or at least it didn't seem different at first. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on. That immediately made my stomach tighten. I never left it on. I stood in my car for a moment, engine still running, staring at the light. I tried to convince myself I'd simply forgotten. I was exhausted after all. Eventually, I went inside. The house smelled off. Not rotten, not strong, just unfamiliar, like air that had been breathed too many times. I locked the door behind me, checked the rooms, and found nothing out of place. Still, I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I noticed something strange. My bathroom mirror had fingerprints on the inside. They weren't mine. I wiped them away, telling myself I must have touched the glass without realizing it. But all day at work, the image stayed with me. That night, I locked every door and window. I even checked the closets and under the bed before sleeping. At 2:17 a.m., I woke up. I didn't know why at first, just that familiar feeling of being watched. Then I heard it, a soft sound, footsteps, slow. I lay completely still, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might give me away. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door. Then something brushed against it. Not a knock, more like fingers. Testing. After what felt like minutes, the sound moved away. I didn't sleep again that night. Over the next week, things escalated. Food went missing, but not enough to notice right away. The TV was once left muted instead of turned off. My shoes changed position near the door. Small things. Intentional things. I installed a cheap indoor security camera in the living room, pointed at the hallway. The first night, nothing happened. The second night, the footage corrupted at exactly 2:17 a.m. The timestamp froze, audio cut, and resumed at 2:36. Nothing on screen. But when I listened closely to the audio file on my computer, there was something underneath the static. Breathing. Not mine. That was the night I decided to confront whatever was happening. I stayed awake. Lights off. Bedroom door open. Phone in my hand. At 2:17 a.m. exactly, I heard movement again. This time I spoke. I said, "I know you're there." Silence. Then a voice. Quiet. Calm. Close. It said, "I know." I couldn't move. My entire body locked up as footsteps slowly approached my doorway. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it wasn't real. Then the voice spoke again, from inside my room. "Don't open your eyes." I don't know how long I stayed like that. When I finally looked, the room was empty. The police found nothing the next morning. They suggested stress. I knew better. A week later, I discovered the crawl space. It was hidden behind a panel in the laundry room I'd never opened before. Inside were blankets, water bottles, food wrappers, and a notebook. The notebook was filled with observations. My schedule, what I watched on TV, the exact times I fell asleep. The last page said, "You talk in your sleep." I moved out the same day. Months passed. I tried to forget. Until one night, in my new apartment, my phone rang at 2:17 a.m. Unknown number. I answered, breathing. Then a whisper, "Did you sleep better here?" I changed my number. But sometimes when I wake up in the dark, I swear I hear footsteps pacing just outside my bedroom door. Mick was the kind of guy you didn't really notice. Mid-30s. Quiet. Worked IT support from home. Lived alone in a ground floor apartment of an older building that had been converted sometime in the late 80s. The place wasn't fancy, but it was cheap, and after his divorce, cheap was all Mick cared about. The building had only 6 apartments. Thin walls. Old plumbing. Floors that creaked even when no one was walking on them. Mick moved in during winter. That's important, because winter is quiet. The first thing Mick noticed wasn't visual. It was sound. At night, after shutting down his computer and lying in bed, he'd hear what sounded like someone sitting down heavily in the living room. Not footsteps, not walking, just the sound of weight, as if a couch cushion had been pressed down. He assumed it was the upstairs neighbor. Then one night, he heard it again, while the upstairs neighbor was out of town. Mick didn't scare easily. He grew up in a noisy house. Old buildings made sounds. Pipes expanded. Wood shifted. His logical brain explained everything away, until the coughing started. At around 3 a.m. every few nights, Mick would hear a dry, strained cough coming from somewhere inside his apartment. It didn't echo like it came from the walls. It sounded close. Too close. The first time, Mick sat up in bed and said, "Hello." The coughing stopped immediately. That silence stayed with him. Weeks passed. Mick began noticing changes. The bathroom fan was sometimes warm when he hadn't used it. His office chair was rotated slightly when he returned from the kitchen. His computer mouse occasionally woke the screen at night. Small things. Annoying things. But what truly bothered him was his cat, Jasper. Jasper refused to enter the hallway after dark. He would sit near the bedroom door, ears flat, staring at the hallway like something was standing there just out of sight. Once, Jasper hissed. The dream started soon after. Mick dreamed of lying in bed, unable to move, while someone stood just outside his bedroom door, breathing slowly, patiently. In the dream, the door never opened. But every night, the figure stood closer. After a week, Mick woke up with scratches on his arm. Thin, parallel, like fingernails. He lived alone. Mick installed a motion camera in the living room. The first 2 nights showed nothing. On the 3rd night, the camera triggered at 3:11 a.m. The footage showed the living room. Empty. But the audio captured breathing. And something else. A whisper. Barely audible. Too loud. Mick shut the laptop and didn't watch the rest. The next morning, he noticed something new. The air vent in the hallway ceiling had been unscrewed slightly. Just enough to notice. Mick stood on a chair and shined his phone flashlight inside. At first, he saw nothing. Then he saw the insulation had been pushed aside. There was space behind it. Space that led somewhere. He called building management. They told him the vents were old and connected through a maintenance crawl system between apartments. Nothing to worry about, they said. Mick started locking his bedroom door at night. It didn't help. At 3:11 a.m. exactly, every night, he'd hear a soft click from the hallway. Metal on metal. Like someone gently testing it. One night, Mick stayed awake. He sat on his bed with a kitchen knife in his hand. Lights off. Heart hammering. 3:11 a.m. The click came. Then a voice. Soft. Familiar. It sounded like him. His voice said, "Mick." It came from the other side of the bedroom door. He didn't respond. The voice tried again. "I forgot my keys." Mick began to shake. He hadn't spoken all night. The building was evacuated 2 days later. Maintenance workers had been investigating complaints from another tenant. Someone who claimed food was disappearing and vents were being opened. They found a man living inside the crawlspace system. He had been there for over a year. He knew everyone's schedules. He wrote things down. When police searched his belongings, they found pages labeled with apartment numbers. Mick's page was the longest. It ended with one sentence. He listens. Mick moved out, changed cities, changed jobs, but he never fully escaped. Because sometimes, late at night, when his apartment is silent, Mick hears a familiar sound. A couch cushion compressing and breathing, very close. Carter wasn't reckless. That's important to understand. He wasn't the type to chase danger or do stupid things for fun. He was careful, methodical, the kind of guy who researched places before visiting them and kept his head down when traveling. Which is why what happened to him in Mexico still doesn't make sense. Because Carter did everything right. Carter traveled to Mexico alone in late October. He told friends it was just a short break, cheap flights, warm weather, a chance to clear his head after quitting a stressful job. He chose a small coastal town instead of a tourist hotspot. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere authentic. That should have been his first warning. The town didn't feel abandoned, but it felt thinned out. Like too many people had left at once. Shops were open. Lights were on. But there were long stretches of streets with no one walking them. No music, no laughter, just wind moving trash across the pavement. His Airbnb was owned by an older man named Luis. Friendly, but distant. When Carter asked about places to explore nearby, Luis hesitated. "There are areas you don't go," he said, simply. Carter laughed it off. Luis didn't. The first 2 nights were normal. Carter swam, ate street food, walked the beach at sunset. But even during the day, he noticed something strange. People watched him. Not casually, not with curiosity. They watched him like they were counting something. At night, the town became silent far too early. By 9 p.m., streets emptied. Doors shut. Lights went dark. On the 3rd night, Carter heard footsteps outside his Airbnb. Slow, deliberate, circling the building. He looked through the window. No one was there. But the footsteps continued. They stopped directly outside his bedroom wall. Then scraping, like fingers brushing against concrete. Carter didn't. The next day, Carter rented a scooter to explore outside town. About 15 minutes inland, the paved road turned into dirt. No signs, no markers, just scrubland and abandoned buildings. He stopped near what looked like an old factory. That's when he noticed something hanging from a tree nearby. Clothing, men's clothing, weathered, torn, still tied carefully in place. Carter felt that familiar instinct, the one telling him to leave immediately. As he turned back toward the scooter, he heard movement behind him. Heavy breathing. Close. He ran. That night, Carter double-locked the doors. At exactly 1:42 a.m., he woke to a sound inside the Airbnb. Not footsteps. Breathing. Slow. Controlled. Coming from the kitchen. Carter held his phone, recording audio without turning on the screen. He didn't move. Then the breathing stopped. A voice spoke softly in Spanish. Then, in broken English, "You travel alone." The kitchen light turned on. Carter stayed perfectly still. After a moment, the light turned off again. The front door opened. The next morning, Carter packed. He went to tell Luis he was leaving early. Luis looked relieved. "You were seen," he said quietly. "By who?" Carter asked. Luis didn't answer. He just said, "You leave today." Carter didn't make it out that day. His scooter broke down less than 5 miles from town, near the same dirt road. His phone lost signal. He started walking back. That's when a truck slowed beside him. No plates. 3 men inside. They didn't say a word. They just stared. Then the truck drove away and stopped and waited. Carter reached an abandoned house before nightfall. Doors were gone, windows broken, but it was shelter. As night fell, he heard vehicles passing slowly, stopping, starting again. At midnight, someone entered the house. Carter hid behind a collapsed wall, barely breathing. Flashlights swept the room. A voice spoke softly. "Gringo." Another voice laughed. Then silence. Minutes passed. Then hours. Just before dawn, Carter heard something else. Scratching. From below the floor. Like someone digging. Carter was found 2 days later by fishermen near the coast. Dehydrated. Barely conscious. He never explained how he escaped the house. He never explained what he saw under the floor. He returned to the U.S. immediately. But even now, Carter refuses to talk about Mexico. Except for one thing. He says that sometimes, late at night, he hears a familiar sound. A truck idling. These stories are real. Subscribe if you want more. If something like this has happened to you, feel free to email me your story. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.